Hi and welcome. This is Ollie from the Crafty Whisk. I'm really glad you could join me today. I'm going to be making a toolbox card today, but you can also use it as a gardener's pouch or anything that resembles this kind of thing. It's a really cute interactive card. It stands up all by itself and it opens up and you can write a sentiment in there, you can pop a gift card in there. It's three-dimensional. You can even pop a chocky in there. As you can see, it stands up. It's really cool. The die set is made from an Australian company called Snazzi Scrappin. Create a card, and it's the Toolbox. It has everything you need. It's quite a few dies in the set. It even comes with the little tools and a set of screws, or screw heads I should say. As you can see, you get quite a lot in there. I've already pre-cut the tools so that I'm not going to show you how to do that on screen, and I've pre-cut them out of a silver cardstock, which I have already put some die cut and bond onto the back of the silver cardstock. It's a double-sided adhesive, and I am going to be placing the pre-cut silver tools onto some pre-cut black die cut tools so that they're more sturdy, and it will create a two-colour tool set, which I'll show you later on in the video, but I've pre-done the die cutting of those because that was a little bit fiddly. But now we'll get stuck into the actual card itself. So I'm going to be bringing out my Spellbinders Platinum, and I'll just do this one in normal speed because there is something I need to show you with the actual card base itself, and that is that it's a little bit bigger than the actual base of my die cutting platform, which is fine. It's not a big deal. I tape my die cut onto the cardstock, as you can see there, with my low tack adhesive, but as you can see, it pops off the edge of my platform. Not a big deal. You just pop it into the machine as per normal. It's a little bit tricky because I'm trying to sort of do it all onto camera. And you just wind it in, sort of halfway, 3/4. And then you sort of pop it back out. And it is tricky because I am trying to do it to camera. Normally I would stand up and I've got more room to sort of maneuver. But what you do is you basically just readjust the plates so you take the plates off, you readjust your cardstock and your die onto the in the plates, so that the bit you need to cut is within the two plates. Pop it back onto your platform and run the bit that you haven't cut back through the machine. And because you've taped the die onto the paper, it won't move. So what you end up getting is a perfectly cut card base, as you can see here. So just because the die is longer than your platform, it doesn't matter. You can get longer platforms for the machine, but I tend to find it doesn't really matter. You don't essentially have to have it. You can have it if you want to, but you don't have to. I've now sped up the process of the rest of the die cutting because die cutting is boring. You don't need to see every little bit. But I have shown you all the bits that need to be die cut except for the tools. I did that in advance because there was a lot of tools to cut out. And it really helps that the package that they send the dies in has images on the front with 2 different variations of colouring, so you can really get a feel for what colour schemes that you want to have your toolbox in, so you can get an idea of what colours you need to do your die cuts in. makes it much easier. So here I'm just making sure that I have all of the dies that I need. So I have the card base, the front panel, the front pocket, 2 stitched dies, and the little decorative note bit on the front. And now I'm taking a wood grain embossing panel, because for this one I actually want to have a wood grain finish on the front decorative piece and the front pocket decorative piece. So I'm going to grab out my die cutting machine again. Now you need to read the instructions on your particular die cutting machine as to how to actually do this. I'm used to my Big Shot, so I actually had to pull out my Spellbinder's instructions. But next time I'm actually going to have a bit of a play, because I felt that it embossed it too deeply with the cardstock that I used. So it wanted me to use the base plate and then the embossing folder and the blue embossing plate, but it embossed it too deeply for my liking. So instead I'm going to go, I think, with the, it has like a silicone matte. I'm going to use that, and maybe a paper shim next time. So even with the instructions, have a play, see what works best for you. And I might even just spritz the paper with a bit of water next time and see if that helps, because it did warp quite a bit as well. And sometimes spritzing with water just helps the paper a little bit to form into the mould a bit. I like a distressed look to a lot of my crafts, so I'm just going to get a little bit of distress ink and just give the wood grain a little bit more of a wood look. I think it helps a little bit rather than just being a bit stark. And I think that just hails back from my scrapbooking days a little bit. I don't know. Or even my cake making days. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe I do have a little bit of artist in me. But I just think it adds to a little bit. And really, if you have a toolbox, are they pristine? I don't think so. They tend to go through the wars a bit. So there we go. It just adds a little bit of a used look, shall we say. And I think these would be really cute for kids too. Do them in bright colours and put, like kids' tools in there. Make the tools nice and bright. Primary colours like your greens and your blues and your oranges. Oh, now I'm getting distracted. Okay, let's make the card. Now, I forgot I zoomed in. So the folding, the die cut actually does put your little embossed lines in. So basically we're making a mountain fold and 2 valley folds. So you're folding the card in half, and then you're folding it back on itself, then flipping the card all the way over and folding it back on itself again, making a mountain and 2 valleys. As you can see there, when I turned it to the camera, you can see that it's a big mountain in the middle. So the mountain is in the center of the card when it closes. Now it's easier to adhere the sentiment strip when the card is like this, before you actually put any of the embellishments on the outside. And with this, you don't want to use glue, because it's harder to write on something which has been glued down. You actually want to use tape runner, because it's much easier to write on. And following the theme from the outside, I'm just going to put a little bit of ink on the edges of the card. So you just put your tape runner on, pop it on the inside. Now you don't have to use a little sentiment strip like this. If you want, you can use the die cut with the one with the little hole in it, so the whole front of the card, and pop that on the inside if you want a bigger piece. Or conversely, you can put it on the back of the card if you wanted more writing room, or both. It's up to you. It's your card. Do what you like. You don't have to follow these instructions at all. So now we can go on to doing the front of the card. Now, because mine was so heavily embossed, I had to use glue. Tape runner wasn't going to cut it. So I've gone back to my favourite glue, which is art glitter glue, and I don't like using it out of the big bottle, so I decant it into a small little bottle, and they're really, really easy to use. Just got to make sure that you put the lid back on really tight, because they do tend to clog up if you don't do that. And the glue gives you wriggle room if you don't put the lid, if you don't get it square straight away, you can sort of maneuver it a little bit for a very small amount of time. And then you just pop it down like so, nice and easy. And now we have to form the pocket. But before we actually do the pocket bit, just pop the decorative piece on front of the pocket, again using glue because it was heavily embossed. If it wasn't so heavily embossed, you can use tape runner for this bit, or glue, it doesn't matter, whatever you have to hand. But because mine was so heavily embossed, I had to use glue. I didn't really have much of a choice there. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, you might be able to see, because mine was so heavily embossed, it actually ripped the paper there, so I'm just being a little bit careful. But being wood grain, it didn't really matter that it was ripped. It kind of added to it a little bit, I think. And you couldn't really tell in the finished product anyway, so I didn't bother redoing it. Now this is the little sentiment strip that goes on the front of the pouch of the pocket, and again I just inked up the edges to keep in with the theme, and a little bit on the front because, you know, that bit would get really dirty because that's where, you know, it would get brushed up against everything. And I was trying to see which sentiment would fit, so I've gotten out these Heffy Doodle ones, and there was a nice little Father's Day sentiment in there that I thought would be just the right size. So I've just primed the stamp by rubbing my fingers over it, getting off of the manufacturer's, I don't know what they have on there, a bit of sealant, I suppose. And yes, I could have used a little block, but I really didn't want to have to re-die cut out the little strip if I made a boo-boo, so out comes the Misty. And because it's so small, it was a bit of fiddling around, but we get there in the end. Now, because I'm not using Copics, I just get out my Versafine because it gives a much neater, fine line for sentiment strips. So I just pop that onto the little, and I'm sorry it's not in camera shot, I forgot I had zoomed in. I will get better at these. And I'm just popping two of the little screw heads on. Now see how it's so beneficial having it on the adhesive backed cardstock? You just sort of take off the adhesive bit and bam, it's on, rather than fiddling with glue. Now this bit I thought it would be really cool to have it raised up a little bit on foam. So I've just gotten out my double-sided adhesive foam, popped that on, and I was just about to put it on, and I thought, oh no, hang on, I've got to make it a pocket first. So I am going to use my red liner tape. I know I'm using so many different adhesives in this video, I apologise, but I needed the pocket to stand up a little bit, so that's why I'm not going for tape runner, because tape runner is like a micron thick, and I needed it to stand up a little bit but not too much. So foam tape is way too thick. I did experiment with foam tape and all the tools just fell out, And glue, I think, would be too thick as well. So red liner tape is less, or it's around about 1 mil thick, maybe a little bit less. So you only want to put it on 3 edges. You want to leave the top edge clear because you need to stick the tools in somehow. So now I'm fine. Once I've adhered that to the front of the card, I'm fine to now put the sentiment strip on. But I didn't like how the foam tape was white. So I'm just putting any old black marker along the edges, and it just takes away that vivid whiteness, as you can see there when I get the camera to focus. So it just takes away the starkness. Then you pop your sentiment strip on, ready to go. Now, to close the card, you can use anything. You can use a magnet, but I've gone for Velcro Dots because I have them in my stash. They were ready to hand. So you just pop the fluffy bit on the spiky bit. These are self-adhesive, so you just then pop one on one bit, close the card correctly, and bam, you're done. How easy is that? So much easier than a magnet, cheaper than a magnet, and it's done. So easy. Now we get to the, I suppose I do a little bit more decorating first. More of these screw heads. Because they're on the self-adhesive bit, you just peel off the backing. You put these wherever you want. You can go absolutely nuts. I just put them around the sentiment strip on the inside. And I think I popped a couple on the outside. If you've got a sentiment strip on the back of the card, you can put them on there. I've put them on the pouch. You could go crazy. You know, you could die cut a whole heap of these and just keep them in a little tub somewhere. You could go nuts. Now comes the fiddly bit, or the good bit. Depends how much you like doing fiddly things. I had to really think about this. I had to think about tools. Which bits were chrome, which bits were not chrome on tools. I did die cut everything out in black and everything out in silver, and everything got backed onto the black, even all the chrome tools. So the chrome tools, even though they're chrome, I backed them onto black so that they were sturdy. Then they get, slipped into the little pouch, into the pocket, beg your pardon. And then all the bits that just had a little bit of chrome on there, bit fiddly. That's where tongs come in handy. Tongs. Tongs are kitchen things. Tweezers. Tweezers come in handy. And see how that, what are those things called? Pliers. So the chrome bit just goes on the top bit of the pliers, and then the black handle stays black. And the wrench, of course, is chrome, so that silver just goes on top of the black. And this bit I couldn't figure out. Is the whole Stanley knife silver, or is it just the knife bit that's silver? I couldn't remember, because in my craft room it's just the knife. But in the garage, what is it? Don't know. So I just went for the knife. The hammer, I thought it was the whole top bit. You can do what you like though, doesn't matter, and it doesn't have to be black underneath. You can have any colour. Have fun. And it doesn't have to be tools. You can have garden implements or flowers. You can make it into a flower box. You can have the pocket on both sides of the card and actually have the pockets done with foam tape, so it actually deliberately sticks out further, and have like flower boxes. That would be really cool, actually. That gives me an idea for another video. Have flower boxes. Yeah, that would be nice. And then instead of having Velcro at the top, have it sitting actually open up the top. That would be a really pretty planter box kind of a card then, wouldn't it? Ideas. See, the die doesn't have to be what it's designed to be. You can adapt. So these are the 2 cards I've made. Really, really lovely ideas. And the other sentiment on the other card was made using this stamp set here, which is from Uniquely Creative, called Work Ute, another Australian company. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Please remember to click subscribe and like, and I'll see you for the next one. Thanks for joining me. See you later.